2nd of March 2022 Thames Coromandel District Council meeting, and recording, I believe, is now beginning, has now started. So are there any apologies? I'm not aware. I think everybody's on board. Sally's there, yeah. So there being no apologies, I just now open the public forum and welcome Graham Lawrence to speak to us in the public forum. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you very much. Good morning, councillors. I'm here appearing for Barbara Drake, Peter Huck, the Bax family and the Bishops in Coromandel in respect to their road closing application. They have applied to stop an unformed piece of road, which is a legal road, unformed and completely disconnected from council's network at the northern end of Coromandel Township. It sits between Hauraki Road and Colville Road at the northern end. Now, the Community Board's tabled for you unconfirmed minutes for your approval, and I am recommending to you that that you put that to one side and seek from the Chief Executive further input in terms of the legal position and the planning issues. Largely because, and I've set out in the paper that I asked to be distributed, that there are serious flaws in the information being made available to the Community Board. The unformed legal road's landlocked, it's precipitous, it's erosion prone, it's in the Waikato Regional Council's high risk erosion area. A large amount of restoration work has been undertaken by my clients to enhance biodiversity and the conservation values of the area. It sits within the Regional Council's significant natural area. The council has a history of making every effort to ensure the land remains unlocked and unconnected so that it could stop the road. It's just a project that people hadn't got round to doing in the past. At the northern end, council's done successive subdivisions and development proposals relying on the fact that the public could not access that road. And at the southern end, it actually stopped the connection to Hauraki Road so as to sever that connection. So it's remained landlocked. Now, in the paper I distributed, I go through a few points. I don't propose to read them. The whole question of instability and safety was a major issue behind keeping the road unformed and inaccessible, and a lot of work's gone into improving its stability and vegetation cover, and largely through private efforts on my clients. The council's has restated its position, and I set out there a copy of the letter from Matt Bush, and that in 2013 that set up one of my clients' efforts to commitment to build on their site. Now, what the Community Board was advised was quite contrary to, did not pursue that. The conservation values, I mentioned the conservation values, they're very high. It's a significant natural area. One client's got a conservation covenant over the land. The information given to the board, there was confused about resource consents, and I don't think it came from a planner, apart from my advice, which they didn't take. They took the roading engineer's advice. The staff report was confused, and I set out that confusion in my paper. Then I go on and there's the whole question of realistic expectations. My clients have had long-standing expectations that the road would be stopped, and that in that way the land would remain unmodified and untouched. I've set out in the paper there a plan showing an aerial showing the network of significant natural areas and the council covenants that protect the biodiversity of the area, and you'll see it's quite a significant corridor, connecting corridor. The unformed legal road I've marked in that plan, and you see it's just a tiny little piece that sits as an island in the middle of all that. Now I go to the last page, and I think it's very important that I cover this in a little more detail with you. But the public can't use the unformed legal road without gaining legal access. It can't be used for a track or a trail without resource consent, and the resource consent is going to involve a written approval from my clients. They can't access it without meeting increased standards that will allow the public to use the private right-of-way system that's sitting at the northern end. The private right-of-way system covers the whole of the entry point to the legal road, and they can't access it without the upgrading that's necessary to enable vehicles and private vehicles and the public to effectively and efficiently use both the right-of-way and the legal road. And they're going to need to get consents. Somebody's going to need to get consents for vegetation clearance in this high-risk area. So it's not going to, I would suggest it's not going to work. And the things that need to be gained are not going to be easily achieved. The three applicant landowners are unlikely to grant consent for public access over their right-of-way, and without that, there was no possibility of getting legal access to the road. The council's strategy sets the background to the current situation, and it would be quite a significant move for council to backtrack on that strategy. The earthworks and vegetation clearance would create significant environmental effects. As soon as the canopies opened up, this very steep, over 25% contour steepness would create severe erosion. The fact that it's stable at the moment is large measure as a result of the good canopy of native indigenous vegetation. And then the consequence, the earthworks and the vegetation removal will be necessary in order to retrofit a public access into a system devised for private use. So it's changing the system that's currently for private use into a system with the public, and there are going to be enormous difficulties with that. Now, I don't expect you to take my word for it. What we're seeking is that you put aside the community board's recommendation and ask your chief executive to seek legal and planning advice before pursuing the requests, and to be satisfied and to report back to the board, to the council, and to keep us in the picture. So that's my recommendation, and that's my brief submission.
Very good. Thank you, Graham. Are there any questions of Graham? Do I see any hands go up for questions? So, but currently, Graham, just to clarify, this piece of land in question is public space.
It is. It's
Yeah.
public space that the public can't access.
Yeah, no, I understand that. As you said before, it's landlocked. Okay. So there being no questions, then thank you, Graham. Appreciate that. And yeah, duly considered. Thank you.
And thank you for your time.
There being no further presentations in the public forum, I see, Ed, you're sitting on a bus combing your hair. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I couldn't help it. Look, I'm terribly sorry. My apologies. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the public forum, please? Luke, Murray, seconded. John, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes. Carried. Any items not on the agenda?
I have one.
Yes, John.
We've got a workshop after this council meeting, and one of the items in there is the Three Waters reform. I propose that what we do is we actually adjourn this meeting and then go into that workshop, and then we deal with any matters arising out of that workshop regarding the Three Waters when we recommence the council meeting afterwards. Now, my reasons for doing that are there's quite a short time frame to deal with any matters dealing with Three Waters because of the way the reforms are going through government at the moment. We have a very small time frame, and it is important to this council. So the importance in the time frame, I think, warrants us dealing with that as soon as possible. So just to be perfectly clear, what I'd like to do is have that on the agenda as a late item to deal with any matters that arise out of our discussion at that workshop. And once that workshop is finished, we come back into the council meeting and deal with any matters, whatever they may be, that arise out of that workshop, just for expediency.
I don't have a problem with that. Does anybody else have a problem with that?
I do. I
Who's
think
that?
it's wrong. We've got public waiting to hear the agenda. If we're going to cut them off, I think we need to follow process. Quite wrong.
It is a process, Gary. Sorry, Robin?
Oh, I agree with Gary. We do have members of the public here. We have press, we have staff.
We can ask our CE for advice, but could we actually not finish this meeting, accept it as a late item, continue the agenda, have the workshop, and then reconvene to have any decisions that will, to confirm anything that needs to be confirmed from that discussion?
That, Sally, I may not have been perfectly clear, was I did not want this dealt with ahead of everything else. I wanted at the end of the meeting adjourned, and then anything that came out of the workshop dealt with at that point.
That's exactly what you did say, though, John.
No, it wasn't. He said adjourn it now.
That's how I heard it. I wasn't.
Well, you're hearing it wrong.
Yeah, okay.
It was my intention then.
Okay, as a late item, it was. Murray, did you want to
No,
say?
I was just going to follow what Sally said. John didn't make it clear. Sally's right, and have it as a late item. That's the way to handle it. Done.
Okay, then. Do I have a mover for that? John, you're moving that. Do I have a seconder for that? Does somebody second that, Martin? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Okay, any conflicts of interest? There being none, any minutes for confirmation? And there are, of course. So we have normally we would have the minutes set out separately. So minutes for confirmation, here we go, page 4. The first one is the Coromandel Colville Community Board minutes. Rex, I'm just wanting to ask your advice around item 6, which is the matter that was raised in the public forum. Do we need to defer that item 6 to be brought back to council as we consider it in light of the matters raised? It is a public space, and so I'm not quite sure what the option 3 was.
Can I just speak to that? What page is that on, Sandra?
Page 4
Or
of the agenda.
Okay, I'll just get you. Basically, yeah, I heard what Graham said this morning, and I'd just like to say a couple of things. It is true that land is landlocked, but it's also quite true that the private landowners at either end of that piece of land are willing, apparently, to give access over their land to use that bit of paper road. It does have quite a lot of community support in here to open it up as a cycle trail. And this has all been done by the late Keith Stevenson. It was one of his plans and dreams, and it continues on. So there is a lot of community support for that piece of road to stay as a paper road to allow that trail to happen. I have no problems with Rex looking at it further just to make sure that we're on solid ground. But I do see it as a big advantage for the community to be able to use that trail. It's part of a larger scheme in the community, and it got unanimous community board support. So, but there's never any problems with being cautious, and if Rex wants to look at it a little further, I have no problems with that.
So we'd move the resolution. I haven't put it for a mover and a seconder yet, but we could move that resolution then, excluding item 6, or just put in there, recommend item 6 be deferred till the following council meeting.
Yep, there is no urgency. There's no reason why it has to be dealt with.
Can I have your advice on that, please?
Yeah, well, item 6 is actually instructing the chief executive to do some work anyway, and based on the public forum, it was really seeking further legal and planning advice to make sure that, as John said, we're covered.
Okay, so you see nothing wrong with the item being accepted as it is?
No,
okay.
I mean, the community board received or accepted it based on, and was recommended based on the report that was provided.
Okay, thank you, Sally, and then Tony.
I'm just, if Rex is confident that if we just approve these minutes and then investigations going to happen, well then I'd be happy with that. But once it's gone through, will that raise community expectations that there's no problems and we're all go? Because to me, deferring it gives the community a sense that this isn't easy peasy and that there's going to have to be planning, etc. advice going into this. So what's your community's, and we've got the emotion of Keith's project, etc. If we approve these minutes, I think that we're increasing expectations when our advice could come back that we're actually in troubled waters. So I would be happier if we deferred till we got the advice and then went from there. But, the chief executive's advice is sound as well.
Tony.
mine's just for those who aren't aware. It's my understanding that pre-2010, roading was a local function, and post-2010 it's a district function. So any cost involved in that won't be local, it'll be district. And with that, I think those of us that are going to fund it need to be very, very sure of what the outgoings and the ongoing costs will be. I fully support the cycleway thing, but all I know is once you get into roading, there are far higher priorities in this district than that. Anyhow, that's my comment.
Thank you, Tony. John.
Yeah, just to put your mind at ease, Tony, this is not going to involve cost to council. This is going to be done by the cycleways people. Okay. They just, so yep, no, I wouldn't be a bar of it if we were going to spend money there, but it's going to be carried by the cycleways people.
Yeah, okay.
Jerry.
Yeah, I just support what Sally's saying. I think we need to err a little bit here in case this turns backwards, and I would be preferred to defer it and work it through than accept it and then have to go back and say, well, this isn't quite what we thought we were going to do.
Murray.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp. Receive the minutes and approve. Well, we can't approve them because they haven't been confirmed by the committee board. But receive the minutes and ask for further information on item 6.
That would be my preference.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, Martin.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with what Murray said.
Yeah.
Likewise.
And I have no problem with that either.
Okay, so John, would you like to move the recommendation that we receive the minutes and deferring item 6 for further consideration?
So moved.
Back to council.
So moved.
Do I have a second it, Martin? Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Now we have the Mercury Bay Community Board minutes. Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Move Tony, seconded Murray. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Tairua-Pauanui Community Board minutes. A mover, please.
So move.
Terry, do I have a seconder?
I will, Gary.
Thank you, Gary. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against, carried. Thames Community Board minutes. Do I
I'll move with an amendment, please. Number 9, we're approving a licence to occupy, but unless you see the full minutes, you don't know where it is. And it's a balcony at 511 Pollen Street, Thames. And I just think that should be in there for clarity.
Agreed and happy to second.
Okay. Any further? Move Sally, seconded Robin. Any further discussion on that?
Did you want me to show that amendment?
Show, you going to put the amendment on screen, Ariana? Yep. Or are people happy to accept that amendment as verbalised?
Put it on screen.
Great. Is everyone happy with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, it seems that the mover and seconder are happy. Everybody else seems pretty happy. That being the case, then I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, carried. Thank you for that. Now it's the Whangamata Community Board minutes. Do I have a mover?
Yes, so move.
Terry, seconder.
I'll second.
Thank you, Gary. Is there any discussion? There being none, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. The Emergency Management Committee minutes.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Move Sally, seconded Robin. Is there any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Audit and Risk Committee minutes.
Yep.
Do I have a mover?
Yes.
Thank you. That was Sally, was it?
Robin.
Robin. Sorry, Robin. Robin and Terry seconded it. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thames Kaimoana District Council minutes. Do I have a mover?
I'll move them.
Thank you, John. Seconded Murray. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. We now move to item 2.1, which is page 95, the hearing of submissions on the proposed revocation of Cemeteries Bylaw.
Sorry, Sandra, did we have to do those the council ones separately because there was like three or 4 different meetings there? We just do them
I took them all as one.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Martin. Page 95, hearing of submissions to be followed by the decisions on revocation of the Cemeteries Bylaw, and the resolution is on page 96. So do I have a mover for the submissions, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Tony. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Terry. Is there any discussion? And we've got Rachel is in attendance on this one. Is there any discussion on that?
Just the number of submissions. I wasn't quite sure. How many submissions did they get in the end?
3.
Just 3. Okay. I was just checking that out. Yep. Okay. Well done.
1 for, 1 against, and 1 just concerned about vandalism.
Yeah, vandalism, yeah, okay.
So in the submission pack, it says a hearing is required as one submitter has indicated they wish to present verbally, but is that not happening?
Mr. Fraser has said he no longer wishes to speak. He's worked with our team to address our public communication and enforcement concerns.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Rachel.
So,
Oh, sorry, are we, with that other submission, the one by Althea Barker, the 5 points in there, are we confident that that those are valid or can be addressed currently? I mean, by the existing one?
Her issues are more operational and exist regardless of whether or not there's a bylaw, and our staff are continuing to work with her.
very good. Thank you, Rachel. Any further matters anyone wants to raise? There being none, then I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So that moves us on to the decision on the proposed revocation, which is on page 103. And do I have a mover? Murray, seconder?
I'll second.
Oh, okay, Tony, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the recommendation? There being none, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So now we are into the page 125 for the elections update. And so this is about the receiving the report and deciding on the order for the contestants. So Esther's speaking to this, but I'll just ask, do I have a mover?
Yeah, happy to move.
Martin, seconded Terry. And is there any discussion?
Well, we have to decide on what we're going to do.
That's right.
Resolution.
So Martin.
So because my name starts with an R, I would like to vote for the random order of candidates' names, please.
I absolutely second that as a Sinclair.
Yeah.
Em's not too far away from you guys.
Self-interest.
As long as Mr. Otherwise Mr. Aardvark's going to be right up the top every time, and that's just not fair.
Can I speak?
Yes, go, Sally.
I've had experience of both at the District Health Board of being alphabetical and being random, and the public found, and I acknowledge my conflict of interest as, you know, having an early surname in the alphabet. However, the random didn't seem to confuse people. They did have a lot of names, however. So I think that just keeping it alphabetical sort of makes sense, and people know who they decide through the book, and the book is alphabetical. And so it sort of makes sense that people go through the book, clear, mark it, and then vote.
Thank you, Sally. John.
But I wouldn't die in the ditch over it.
Hey, I totally support Sally. I'm a bit of a loser there too, Martin. M doesn't come too quick in the alphabet either. But yeah, it seems that the public get like it better when it's alphabetical. I remember Adrian Catron used to love alphabetical because his middle name started with a B too. I think he was ABC. But hey, listen, I think alphabetical is the way to go. It's what people understand.
Can I ask a question? Have we ever done it randomly before?
Yes.
We have.
I'm sure we have.
Murray.
Well, I'm ambivalent. It doesn't matter to me. I've seen it done both ways. I don't think it makes any difference, and I actually think pseudo random is fairer on everyone. But I don't care.
So,
but Martin, before you, is there anybody else that wants to say a few words on the order?
I would just think alphabetical because it's pretty traditional for most things.
Yep. Sorry, you said that alphabetical is used for most things, Gary. Okay, Terry?
Well, it doesn't really worry me, quite honestly, but I'm at the bottom, so If it went the other way, it wouldn't mind me either, so it doesn't worry me.
Martin.
So I just wanted to check. So there's two things here, but we're only deciding on one. So the booklet is in alphabetical order, but the voting paper is the thing that we're deciding on. Is that correct?
That's right.
The voting document, yeah.
But the booklet has to be in alphabetical order? I'm sorry, I'm not proposing that we change the booklet. There may be confusion if we've got the booklet in one and the voting paper in the other. I don't know.
And I think that's Sally's point. And so I agree with alphabetical order. I think is it's just tidier, and it's been the standard way in which most things have been done. And I think that I have been around. I think when there was a random, but John.
Oh, I was just going to cut this and go. I'll move the resolution with 2.1, if you like, as the preferred voting method.
Okay, do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'd second.
Okay, so moved John, seconded Tony. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And carried. So it's an alphabetical order. Sorry, Martin. But fine effort on your part and Robin's.
Like Sally says, I'm not going to die in a ditch over.
Okay, 137, climate change declaration.
I'll move the resolution.
I'll second the resolution.
Can I speak to that though?
Yeah.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. Just getting the page first, guys. You've got ahead of me.
137.
Thank you. Hey, listen, the one thing that struck me there was the resolution was leaving Martin out on a limb there, swinging by himself. I'm quite happy to actually have it that any councillor that wants to sign that along with Martin can sign it, rather than leaving him sitting there on his own. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Martin.
Through you, Your Worship, it's a declaration of that is ministered through LGNZ, and they just have one signatory from each of the local authorities as it currently stands. But so we would have to check if they wanted multiple signatories, but there is only one signatory from any of the local authorities who have signed it currently, so it would be going outside of that.
Well, it's not a legal document apparently, so I can't see it makes much difference.
Let's just stick to what we're saying. Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the things that oh, sorry, Robin.
Oh, well, I was just going to say in response to that, John, we've canvassed this issue fairly heavily in our time here. So I sort of feel like in asking Martin to sign this, we actually are clearly, those of us who it represents, and that is all of us, are clearly represented in one signature, and I feel absolutely fine with it being Martin's signature.
Yeah, I'm relaxed. I'm just aware that we either hang together or we hang separately, and I didn't want to see Martin hanging by himself. That's okay.
But he's not.
Tony.
Yeah, I just want to have it recorded that I do not support signing this document at all. Except that I support the council decision to have someone sign it. So, so I just want that recorded. I have no support for signing this document at all, but I recognise that I am in a minority on this. And if Martin signs it, I'm quite relaxed about it, so long as everyone knows that I'm not in it.
Yep. Understand that.
Any other comments? Then I'd like to make one as well. I'll be opposing the recommendation in its entirety because I don't believe anyone should be signing this document, and I don't believe we meet the decision-making criteria of the Local Government Act if we carry on with this resolution, in particular section 79, which talks about compliance with procedures in relation to decisions, and in 79B2, the degree to which benefits and costs are to be quantified. And I don't think we've ever quantified the benefits and costs of signing into this declaration. And that's always been my concern, is about the unknown quantum of costs. And so I'm just bringing that to our attention because I've raised it consistently that I don't believe that we've met our obligations in regard to the Local Government Act and the decision-making criteria about identifying benefits and costs and the degree to which they're meant to be quantified. And if we're not going to do that, then we need to potentially indicate that we're outside what our standard decision-making criteria would be. I'm not quite sure. I'm not absolutely sure of the legality of that. So
you're just trying to relitigate this again. You can't have.
No. I'm putting down my reason, Gary, for opposing the recommendation. And if you don't mind, I have the floor at the moment to state my position on this. And I've given everybody the opportunity to do that, and you have that opportunity as well. And so just because I'm sitting in the chair and I'm the mayor doesn't mean to say I can't be accorded that same privilege that the councillors get as well. So that will complete my concern around why I'm opposing this recommendation and have some further concerns around the decision-making criteria. Now I see Terry has his hand up. Terry.
Yes, well, I just look back and look at the time and money spent on this, and I just think this is the right move going forward. We've been discussed it at length. We've been out to consultation. We've done everything we think is the right steps forward, and this should put it to bed, and we can move on, because at the moment it's just hanging around our neck, and I just support it and get it done and move on.
Gary.
I think Murray had his hand up before me.
Oh, sorry, Murray.
In light of the fact that we've received the Audit and Risk Committee reports and the recommendation to Council, which is well noted where the voting was, I would like to ask the Chief Executive, in light of what the Mayor has said, are we out of order now if we're relitigating something that we as a council, and we all sat there in order to risk and made that resolution, we passed it all together. Are we going to be out of order now trying to relitigate it? I just think it's a simple matter of approving Councillor Rodney to sign and get on with life.
Through you, Your Worship, in answer to Councillor McCain's question, you are responding to a recommendation from the Audit and Risk Committee, but you're also basically enacting what was decided at the 7th of December meeting, where actually the wording that is similar, or the wording that is in the declaration, you have resolved as very similar wording to what you are and how you are going to undertake this going forward. So I think in answer to the query from the Mayor around costs and benefits and related to that, that decision has actually been made by a separate resolution that you have made as a council. I think it was at the 7th of December meeting. So in answer to your question, Councillor McLean, this is a recommendation from the Audit and Risk Committee. If things have changed since that committee's resolved to ask you to sign this, then that would be brought up. But apart from that, it is as is recommended by your Audit and Risk Committee.
Gary.
Yes, well, thank you. I noted at that meeting the chair also voted for it as well. So the end result is that we have a decision. As Terry has said, it's cost the ratepayers a lot of money for intransigent approaches, and I think we need to move on and get it done.
That's fine. So therefore, any further comment in regard to the resolution? Then I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? I'm against. Okay. So I'd like my opposition to this recorded. Thank you. Right, we move on to the next item. And the next item is the non-financial performance measures quarter 2 results, page 140. And we have Rachel. Is it Rachel? Right. So do we have a mover for this, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to move.
Terry, seconder?
Yep.
Thank you,
That's
Robin.
Yep.
Discussion. Is there any discussion?
Who's going to talk to us? Bruce talking to this? Who's talking to it?
Myself, unless there's a very technical question, in which case I'll give it all to Bruce.
Just really around the non-achieving stuff with the wastewater consents. Is there issues around that? I see one that's outstanding. It's been around for a while, and this comes back from regional council discussions.
Yes, so I only know as far as I've written in the comments, so that's probably best given to Bruce.
Right.
Good morning, Council.
Morning, Bruce.
Bruce.
Morning. So through the chair, yeah, there are a few issues there that we're just still kind of working through and resolving. Overall, we're actually making really good progress with our non-compliances, particularly around wastewater. And you'll see in the comments that we've referred to some desludging works that we got stuck into on about 3 of our ponds across the district, and then had to pull back on with COVID lockdowns, which really kind of slowed things down. The contractors locked down in Auckland, and then obviously a lot of contractors having issues around COVID. So we're still just moving forwards as expeditiously as we can with that stuff.
Can I ask Bruce, just what's the issue with the Wangata stormwater pond in terms of compliance?
I don't know that level of detail. Sorry, Terry, I don't have that on hand. The specific consent condition that one's referring to.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to find out and come back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Make a note.
Are there any other questions for Bruce or any other? Sorry.
I just have one in the middle of page 147 under the roads and footpaths. There's the performance measure there about the number of deaths and serious injuries on the local road network. So I'm assuming that this is that this one's like never achieved.
No, that's not the case through the year. We have had years where we have achieved it, and we had quite a long run actually, with a few years in a row where we were doing really well. And then we've had a run, unfortunately, very tragic, that we've had a few years in a row where we haven't achieved it, and we've had a number of incidents on our network with serious incidences and deaths.
I guess from my point of view, it just concerns me that council was being judged, for want of a better word, on something that, yes, if the road related issues, the accidents caused by something that we did or didn't do, then I completely get that not achieved. But I guess I just really struggle with someone has been drinking or speeding and has a serious accident. And council's like, no, you didn't achieve that. I don't know what other people's thoughts are about it. Actually,
that's a very good point, Martin, because I'm aware of this particular one, and so it's a very good distinguishing feature that we are. What you're saying is it's about road condition. So if the road condition didn't contribute to the fatality or the injuries, then and to some degree that needs to be identified, really. So if it wasn't road condition, we have achieved it.
Unfortunately, this measure and how we measure it is set by the Department of Internal Affairs. Oh, right. So while we can comment that nothing was related to road issues, and we have, this is one measure that we do not have complete control over achieving.
I did wonder if it was a mandated thing.
I can assure you my roading team were on the same page as you elected members around that, but Rachel's correct. We've had discussions with Audit New Zealand around this over some previous years, and we're doing it as well as we can as far as comments to provide a little bit of perspective and information.
So I'm just wondering if there doesn't need to be a notation where it's got not achieved. No road structural issues contributed to this situation. It's whether there isn't that notation in there. So no road structural issues identified. Put it that way. So that the not achieved is clearly not related to the actual condition of the road, even though subsequent to this there was a barrier asked for. It still isn't the road condition that's been a contributing factor.
So through the chair, we have got the note in there next to that measure, where it says of the 12 serious injuries and 1 death, none were road-related issues.
Oh, you have? Yeah, you have. I didn't read down that far. I just wonder if you don't need to separate it out a little bit further. Okay. Because I yeah, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's all right.
Happy to review the comments for next time.
The 12 serious injuries, were they on our network as opposed to the state highway network?
Our network is correct.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Or Tony, sorry. Tony the Murray.
Yeah, I just going to raise, so this has been raised 40 times that I know about. Maybe as a council, we should be writing to DIA to just spell out the anomaly and maybe have it split into 2 parts, because it is very misleading, and I suspect that the biggest majority, like 90% of these things, are human error and nothing to do with the road or the environment at all. So I think it's worthy to split it out, because people do read these things and they think it's our problem unless we make it very clear that it isn't our problem. So to sit back and say, yeah, I agree, it's a DIA, well, maybe we need to go and challenge it, because that's our job. And maybe we get LG&Z to challenge it, because every council's in the same boat.
Just following on from that, before I defer to you, Martin, Bruce, why are we identifying that if there's been no serious injury or death related to our road construction, why are we putting that in there?
Why are we putting what in there? Sorry, I'm just not sure I follow the question.
So why are you bothering to identify it in it as a performance measure if there's been?
Oh, these are mandatory measures from the DIA. We don't get to choose whether we have these or not.
This particular one.
Yeah.
All of them under roading. Yeah.
So this is not state highway. This is local roads, right, Bruce? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Correct. It's local roads, but
their own network.
Yeah, but DIA specify across all of our activities a number of mandatory measures. So some activities have lots of mandatory measures, such as roading, and others have just a small number of mandatory measures. And then we put in our own measures to manage performance if we believe that we need additional ones to the mandatory. So so the roading ones are mandatory, so we can't get out of those.
Okay, no, I just thought I'd clarify. Martin.
Oh, sorry, this was about something else. So if other people have got something to talk about roads, then.
All right, carry on.
So just looking at page 160, bottom of 161, that talks about that we're on track to achieve the council waste per rating unit. But then right down towards the bottom of the next page, the bottom of that section on the next page, it says, based on the high number of visitors in December, January, we may see an increase in waste in Q3, but we still think that we're I'm just wondering if we're still confident that we're going to achieve that 1% decrease.
Yeah, it's anyone's guess, unfortunately, with that. Yeah, it's really hard to know at this stage. Our kind of previously, prior to COVID, we had a fairly good handle on where we were going with these kinds of measures, you know, because our patterns were fairly typical each year, that pattern across the 12 months. But now with COVID, the patterns have kind of gone out the window. And so we really just don't know which way things could go on that. So, yeah, can't really give you any more detail than that at this stage, unfortunately.
And I guess just a follow-up question. So if we want to get more ambitious about how much solid waste per rating unit, when do we as councillors get the opportunity to look to change that decrease that we want to achieve?
So the targets are set every time we do the long-term plan, and these targets come out of the waste management and minimisation plan. So when we go through that process, which we'll be going through shortly, that's the time when you can set those targets and that percentage decrease that we're looking to achieve each year.
So we'd still be able to do that, even though that the whole of that waste strategy is not coming out until next year?
Yep, correct. So timeframes line up perfectly as far as for the next LTP to have things all lined up around targets from the WMMP. And again, you know, they don't have to be fully in sync. You know, you'll do the WMP earlier than the long-term plan. You set your targets and that's what we work hard to aim for. And then the LTP, when that's done, subsequently picks up those targets from the WMP at that time.
Yeah, okay.
Murray. Murray?
You're on
Murray,
mute.
do you want to unmute? Murray was next. Right.
I want to ask a question on what Bruce just said, and not related particularly to this, but where do we stand in view of what the government announced last week? And we're talking about the next long-term plan and waste minimisation. The government announced some plans to go out to consultation next week and all that on basically recycling and a whole lot of things. Where do we stand and where's our risk with our current contract, which we've now extended from July to September? But I think we're on a little bit of shifting sands as to where we're going to go with a lot of this.
So through the chair, the first point I'd note is we didn't extend the contract. It was always going to end in September next year. To pick up on what the government's announcements last week, that was, you know, there's a lot of stuff around recycling. And so obviously the industry will be trying to respond to that. There was a large part in there around food waste and making sure by 2030 you've pulled it out. We obviously, we really don't want to wait until 2030. So we've gone out today actually as the first day of the consultation around food waste. And organics and what our customers want to do with that. So that's out for about 3 weeks. I think that information will come back to staff and to elected members around which way the feedback is from that submission consultation period, and then that'll be factored into our contract when we go live with that probably in, or sorry, we land the contract in July to start in September next year. So basically what we'd have to look at is what our public come back with and what the decision is that the councillors want to make around food waste. If, for example, council said, no, we don't want to do food waste, we're going to leave it, and we go out for a 10-year contract, we'd have to know that in 2030, even though we've decided to go not for pulling food waste out of the waste stream, we then would be forced with the legislation. So that would be the only risk around that. But I think at this stage, we need to just keep following our process, get our feedback from our consultation, and then we'll go through that process and work out which way we're going to go with things around organics and food waste.
Murray?
Can I just make a comment for the newer councillors, just so they know that Councillor Fox and I sat on the Waste Minimisation Committee, which covered TCDC, Hauraki and Matamata-Piako in 2013. And in 2013, at that committee, that Waste Minimisation Committee, the two of us made a strong recommendation for food waste collections then. So I just want to say to them, it's something we've been championing for 9 years now. Martin, it's not new, but some of us, it's dear to our hearts to say, let's get it done.
Okay, Robert.
This is one of my favourite reports that ever comes to council. I enjoy it. And well, I particularly like reading about the bits that the public get to see a lot of, because I think it gives us a lot of justification for the good job that we're doing. And one of the things that I always particularly look for is the community facilities and their use. And I know where this came up in a meeting at community board a workshop that we had at community board recently about, you know, the percentage of use. But I did notice, to my intense disappointment, that there was community facilities data was missing from Coromandel Colville. I just wondered if there was a reason why that was. Usually there's a report on how often the hall is being used, and I look at that with interest.
I'm just trying to find the page. Sorry.
Oh,
Robert.
sorry. It's 176, 177.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one. Sorry, I'm not quite sure what
good.
the reason for that is. I'm just scrolling to have a quick look at some of the other ones.
Don't forget, because of we're being in COVID, there's not many large gatherings, and halls and things like that. So a lot of that sort of thing, a lot of that large group activity is diminished, I would suggest.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm not sure why that one's not popping through though, unless Rachel knows. But I'll take a note and I'll make sure I find out and come back to you.
Cool. Thank you.
Rachel.
Yes, sorry, I'm just bringing my screen back up. It was not in Q1 either, and this is the first set of new reports from a new long-term plan where we removed several measures. So I would need to double check, but my expectation is that measure was removed during the adoption of the last long-term plan.
Oh, in that case, we've got some sort of inconsistency because it's there for Whangamata and it's there for Thames.
Yeah, we'll go back and have a look. I know there was some rationalisation of some of the measures. There are a lot of measures across the activities, and particularly when you look at, the community board activities, we've got 5. So we've got this generally, like you say, Robin, the same measures across those 5 different activities. But there was definitely some rationalisation, but we'll double check on that one and confirm whether that was taken out deliberately or an error.
Cool bananas, thank you.
Any other queries of Bruce? There being none, then I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. So we move on to the next item, which is the option for management of council's maritime facilities, page 187. Do I have a mover?
Yep, I'll move.
Martin, do I have a seconder? Murray, any discussion? I think we've got to... Yep, Terry.
Yeah, so I'm very interested in the discussion with this one regarding the assets. And I go back to really around our assets, which is a poetry hasn't really got an asset at all. It's just a canoe entry, and the Kotahi one is the other one. It's a tidal entry, which has got no access at all, and the other one's the beach, which we launch boats off. So pretty low in terms of assets, and I'm just really interested to see where this goes and whether we go into the review of a bylaw going forward to discuss how these are going to be developed and handled.
I'll take Rachel, then Murray.
Yes, you're right, Terry, through the chair. We noted after the agenda item was finished that a couple of the facilities were mislocated or not meant to be there. So updated in the minutes, and I will just share this with you. Whangaparoa Wharf was located in the wrong ward. And as you've noted, I've got 2 there that shouldn't be. We've picked these ones because these are the ones where there are potentially a health and safety or a nuisance issue that we want to manage. So it's not necessarily about how much structural asset there is precisely, but more that there is something that we are trying to make as safe as possible for community use.
Okay, thank you.
Murray.
So I take it when I read the summary here, and it talks about wharves, I take it that the anomaly we have in Whitianga, where we've had a harbour master doing wharves and it's a council wharf and one thing and another, and we have an ambassador down there. If we get a new bylaw, then council will administer its own facility, being the wharf, and we will be in charge of it, and we will be able to, and operators that don't conform to the conditions, we will be able to infringe.
We have a variety of enforcement tools. We can't infringe through our own bylaw, although you are right that the harbour masters can infringe through their bylaw. So this bylaw won't take away their powers, but will give us some ability to ask people to act more responsibly themselves. There is also Maritime New Zealand, who also have some responsibilities in that area in terms of boating behaviour.
I accept what you've just said, but we have operators down there with vehicles on the wharf. We operate doing repairs on the wharf, unloading rubbish on the wharf, a whole lot of factors. If the bylaw will be strong enough so that we can control our facility and infringe if necessary on our facility.
It will, but it will be through the courts. We cannot issue fines.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tony.
Mine's a follow-up brief what Murray's saying, and I think that maybe we do need more ability to manage our asset. In Whitianga, we have a significant issue with a small number of youths who are worse than antisocial. Now, we've had this discussion with our local police and a number of other people, but these are people who have no regard, no respect, no nothing for anybody. And when they start jumping into the area of an incoming boat, or they jump into the back of the area where there is props turning, because these boats keep running all the time, albeit the prop won't be running when they're tied up. But we've got a serious issue in front of us unless we get a grip of it. The police seem, and probably rightfully so, pretty reluctant to have anyone down there regularly. We're relying on our community to report these issues to the police, but we all know how long that takes to get any traction. So and we've got staff who frankly have either resigned or won't do the job because it's so intimidating and threatening on this wharf. So somehow I would like to think that we do have something, that when we do need to pull something out to preclude someone from being there, we can. And that's and if we're talking about health and safety, that is it. The health and safety has got nothing to do with the boaties who use it. They're the least of your worries. It's the people on the wharf poking their head over to see what's going on who fall off, or jump into the way of a boat, or jump into a bloody turning prop. And then we do have an issue. So if someone said to me, what are the biggest issues facing Whitianga today, I'd say youth behaviour. And where does it happen? On the wharf, and to a lesser degree, the skate park. So I do think whatever we do, we need to stiffen this up. So whether it's us or the regional council, but I think one body, that's half our problem in life. We dual consent, we dual everything, and no one takes responsibility. I do think we need something to give somebody the teeth to go and deal with it.
Terry.
Well, I just raised that point that Tony's raised, is where does the regional council fall into this? He's the harbour master, he's supposed to be responsible. Where do these lines, are they blurred lines or what? Are we trying to do their job by putting this controls in place? We need to understand where the responsibilities lie.
There is an overlap. They're responsible for navigational safety under the Maritime Transport Act.
Yeah.
We are proposing a bylaw under the Local Government Act to protect people around our facilities. So there is crossover in regards to like swimming and diving around the facilities where people are using it, in which case it's about using whatever tool gets the best result. Whether it's normally a warning or court action from us or fines from the harbour masters. And we've already started discussions with the harbour masters on how we can improve our relationship and working together.
Yeah,
but
so around our situation,
yep.
Sorry. Yeah, so around our situation, the wharf is more for jumping off with kids than boats coming up to it. But so we have the surf club there over the Christmas period to look after that and control that activity. But as far as down at the boat ramp, it's just the fishery officer and the WRC harbour master that seems to be the only people involved down there, and it works well. I just wonder why we would put another level of compliance and at cost.
Okay, I'll now go to Murray, then Tony.
I can only reiterate that the time I've been involved, which is almost 20 years here, this wharf has always had a problem that we've never been able to force anything. We've always left control of the wharf to harbour master, and yet it is our facility. We want to just bear in mind, we want to start charging people for use of the wharf. So we need a bylaw that we are absolutely sure ground of what we're doing. And it needs to encompass that if we're issuing concessions to use the wharf and use the wharf facility, the bylaw covers that. It needs to be it needs to accommodate the commercial use. Now, except what Rachel said, what's happening further out, that's absolutely right. But we have boats tie up at the wharf on our facility that we are not charging for properly because no one bothers with it, no one administers it, and there's a lot of revenue we're getting lost because of that. So we need a bylaw that we can tie up, enforce revenue, enforce behaviour, enforce a whole lot of things.
I'll go to Brian. Brian, I'll go to you, Brian, and then Tony.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just wanted to jump in there, remind everyone that we do have a current bylaw. So we've had one in place since 2015. The issue that we talk about in terms of maritime facilities and activities in public places, etc., is that the primary legislation doesn't allow us to issue infringements. So when we issue infringements against our dog control bylaw, that's because the Dog Control Act itself allows councils and sets an infringement regime. So this is very similar to when we talk about things like skateboards and the like in our town centres. So yeah, so I just wanted to remind everyone of that. And absolutely,
who can bring it? Who can bring a ticket charge against these people?
For the nuisance that we're talking about, I wouldn't think anyone could. If it's nuisance on the wharf facility itself. So we'll use different enforcement strategies through our own influence and the like, and patrols, and continue to work with
my new boss.
Continue to work with police for antisocial behaviour issues. But I agree with Councillor McLean and Councillor Fox that is difficult, especially when we talk about youth.
Thank you, Tony.
So this is another example for me where no one wants to take responsibility or be accountable. I clearly understand what happens. Once you are in the water, it's a WRC problem. Once you're on land or the wharf, it's our problem. We've got to actually work out there's a problem and then say who is responsible. And having shared responsibility ain't an option. So when we go and look at this now, we say, well, we understand the predicament we're in now. We've got one body looking after what's in the water. We've got another body looking at what's above mean high water spring. And when the problem happens between them, because you could argue that it's our problem because they've been on the wharf and jumped into the water, but and the regional council could say, well, it's their problem because they're in the water. I think it's just like this is all through local government and what we do. Someone has got to get their head scared and say,
Tony, as Brian just said, we can't bring any enforcement against these people because the law doesn't allow it. The primary legislation doesn't allow it. So we need to find what the mechanism is that gives you authority to bring enforcement action against these people, because currently it isn't us. Am I understanding that correctly, Brian?
We can take enforcement, but it's a prosecution for breaching the bylaw.
Right.
What we're saying is that there's no instant infringement.
Great. Yeah. So the issue I'm trying to get to is one person, like when you get multiple people in charge of the one thing, it's always going to be a cock up. You've got to have one person responsible and one person fixing it. Our problem is we defer, we say it's not our problem because they're in the water. People looking after the water say it's not our problem because they jumped off your asset.
So currently,
we've got to get our head in and say, what is the problem and how do we fix it?
Yeah,
and not keep going around saying, the book says this is who's responsible. Go and rewrite the book if you have to, because as Murray rightfully said, this has been going on for as long as I have been a permanent resident in town.
Right. So let's try and deal with it. So Brian, so the current, is there anyone currently that can raise an instant infringement? My understanding from what you're saying is there is, and who is that?
For activity on the wharf?
Yeah. Who can do an instant infringement?
It will depend on what the issue is that we're talking about. So if we're talking about jumping off the wharf, I mean, I'll defer to Rachel whether the harbour master can issue something under their. So
that's regional council, right?
Yeah.
So the regional council could authorise our control officers to also be able to do instant infringements in accordance with their authority, couldn't they?
Yeah, look, at this stage, we're talking about whether we create a bylaw. That's what the report's about. So through that process, I think I'm absolutely happy to take it away with Rachel and see what the current rules under the Waikato Regional Council bylaws are. And if there is something that prohibits jumping off a wharf, we're going to want to decide whether we're aligned to that. And then we could talk about enforcement powers. But as Councillor Walker touched on, we have facilities where kids jump off wharves. And so there's going to have to be a discussion around that. If we prohibited people jumping off a wharf, under our powers, we would have to prosecute them. So we'd be looking at prosecuting teenagers for jumping off a maritime facility.
So my thinking was around the instant infringement notice and using the authority of the regional council, because they can also give authority to our control officers, and because what I'm hearing is about enforcing safety criteria so that we keep so that people aren't putting themselves in harm's way. So I think that
So
can
through
be
the bylaw,
further offline without taking up too much more time of the council. Terry.
Well, it concerns me that Whitianga has got this issue, whereas I'm sure the other wharves around the area don't have this issue. And we're putting a lot of compliance, cost and concern into something that I'm sure can be managed easily. If it's an issue with Whitianga on its own, well, maybe it needs to be addressed on its own, but it's certainly not an issue in the other places where I go to launch my boat or go to what's happening on the wharves. So I'm really concerned that we're going to throw unnecessary money at this for something that might be managed as a site-only issue rather than across the district.
Thank you, Terry. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I just want to say we're talking about a bylaw. This is talk that needs to go into creating this new bylaw. We're identifying challenges and problems that we've heard and have obviously been ongoing. So this is a conversation to be had as we develop this bylaw so that it's the very best we can have. And we're using every tool that we can in our toolbox.
Thank you, Sally. Martin?
Yeah, I mean, just a final comment. I mean, the whole Kiwi holiday jumping off wharf thing is just so ingrained in our culture. I mean, you look at any promotional ad on TV, you know, even just the one for the TV one, which shows kids jumping off as the big ball rolls along towards them. You know, every promotional thing about come and visit this region or that region invariably has kids jumping off wharves. So, yeah. They're going to keep doing it. We just need to, try to find some way to keep them safe. I don't think it's about being punitive, but just saying, hey, you know, don't do it here, do it there, you know, but within those, within those guidelines that we can't really, at the moment, do much to stop them doing it.
Thank you, Martin. Good point. Okay, right. I think that about wraps it up. If that's the case, then no further discussion. I shall put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So we now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the proposed district plan update 2007. And we're just receiving the report. Do I have a mover? Move Tony, second Murray. All those in favour? Oh, no, sorry. Discussion. Is there any discussion on the district plan update? We have Bruce Baker.
If I can just make a comment around the SNAs. The SNAs, remember, were brought up in 2013 or wherever it was. I can't quite remember exactly when, and then they were withdrawn, and then Variation 1 came in. I'd like to know, are those outstanding issues still to be resolved in the district plan around SNAs?
The only, through the chair, the only issue with SNAs is the issue that I've highlighted in about section 29 with plantation forestry and the identification of SNAs within plantation forestry and the rules that are being developed for protection of those areas when that production forestry.
Right, there's nothing on private land.
That has extended into private land at the moment. Our ecologist is identifying the extent of that. That's to do with the word adjoining that's in the national policy statement.
I'm a bit concerned that with the Natural Built Environment Act, that these are going to become more and more prevalent and more of an issue. Do you feel that way?
I'll wait until I see the National Built Environment Act.
Very. Okay.
Okay. So any further comment from anybody? Queries of Bruce? There being none, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Bruce. We move on to 2.8, which is the Pare Hauraki Kaimoana proposed plan change 2 to the Waikato District Council plan. Do I have a mover?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Seconder? Do I have a seconder for that one? Receive the approves lodgement of the submission.
Yeah.
Councillor who was that?
Me, Martin.
Oh, sorry, Martin. Thank you. Right, discussion, and we have Bruce again. Thank you, Bruce. It's pretty straightforward.
Councillor, remember in January you approved the submission on the resource consent that Hauraki Lodge to undertake marine farming in the Coromandel Marine Farming Zone, which is in the off the western coast at the northern part of the peninsula. This is a separate application. It's a plan change application to change the regional coastal plan to allow the anchor lines for that marine farm to be fixed to the seabed outside of the marine farm zone. Currently, in the coastal plan, that's a prohibited activity. For resource consent, the plan change is intending to make that a discretionary activity.
Thank you. Yeah. Lorna, did you want to make comment?
Only in the fact that this submission is talking to the economic benefits, as we talked about in the submission for the January council meeting, about the actual application for consent for more aquaculture to come, and it would benefit the Sugarloaf Wharf project as well.
Sally?
Is our submission entirely that it's going to create jobs and economic development? It is totally silent on environmental costs or effects. So, like, have we considered that at all, or are we leaving that to other organisations to assess the risks? Because it feels as if it's all very well. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I'm saying we're totally silent as if it's going to have no environmental effects whatsoever, and I can't believe that. And there is a portion of our population that would be wanting us to consider those effects, and I don't see that in our submission.
That's correct. The submission is focused around economic development. The absence of comment on exit, because we haven't got any experts to provide us with information on those effects, and so that's why we don't comment on them in the submission.
Right, because I would suggest also that if it had catastrophic economic environmental effects, that would affect the economic development of Coromandel. But just make my point, and I get what you're doing. It's just that I think there'll be a section of our population that are disappointed that we haven't even mentioned that we haven't got the expertise to comment on the environment. We just forget it.
Thank you, Sally. Tony?
I was just going to say that this is another one of those examples. So what's happening out in the marine area to Waikato Regional Council consent? They're the ones that will say whether you can or can't. And so for me, I take on board what Sally said, but there's no point in us doing an environmental assessment and spending all that money only to go over the hill to be redone in Hamilton. But I think it's well worth noting something along dependent on the environmental assessment report and leave that in the hands of the regional council so we don't duplicate the effort and cost.
Yep, that makes sense. I like that.
Yeah, me too. Okay, then I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Bruce and Lorna. And we now go to 3.1, which is the adoption of the draft Tairua-Pauanui Reserves. And I'm just wondering if we do the next two on infrastructure, and then do you want to have a break for morning tea before we go into the next part, governance and management updates, etc.? So
Yes,
do you want?
we do.
We'll do these two and then break for morning tea. So adoption of the draft Tairua-Pauanui Reserves on page 218. And do I have a mover?
Yeah, I'm happy to move this.
Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Robin.
I hadn't
Discussion?
myself.
Yeah, I'd just like to, who's speaking to this? Is it?
Faith?
It's me, Terry, Faith.
Oh, right, Faith. Oh, yeah. There was a couple of comments that were raised at the with the community board over a couple of the reserves. I just wonder if they were addressed or under sorted.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Can you just remind me what those comments were, and I can probably.
I haven't got them written with me. Sorry, they were just. I think one was around the reserve around the Pepe skate park. I can't remember exactly, quite honestly. I just knew that they were raised. I just can't remember them offhand. Sorry.
It is going out for public consultation, Terry, so if there are any issues, they can be a part of that process.
Yeah, I realise that, Sandra. Yeah, it was just these were thought worth raising at the time, but happy to move it. So.
Okay, any further comment? There being none, then I'll put the. Okay, thank you. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. And we're now on to 3.2. This is the construction material cost increases resulting as of COVID. So, and here we go. So, do I have a mover for the recommendation? Murray, do I have a seconder? Tony, any discussion? Honestly, one or two of these are
big.
Electrical cabling, 18 to 20%. Whoa. Oh, sorry, Tony, go.
So this thing here to me is a very good case for us in a few paragraphs to work out what these costs are and to stick it across every form of media we've got access to so that our public know some of the difficulties that we face. So I had this down for my members report, but I'll cover it now. So we have got increased costs, which means we either do it and pay the bill and the rates go up, or we don't do it and we have some other consequences. But for me, this is a key issue to get across to the general public so they understand some of the dynamics that we deal with. And this will be the biggest one that we've got in front of us because it actually translates into money. So I would just be saying that we need to get on the front foot and just say we're doing our best. But this COVID thing, there's been a lot of impact on a lot of people. But for what we do, which most of what we do is on the ground, this is a case in point. So massive increases coming our way. If we carry on, got to be funded somehow, or we start turning stuff off. But all I just say, there's a good story to put out there, and we need to get it out there.
Yep, incredible, Murray, and then Terry.
Murray's got his.
Murray, unmute, please. Yeah.
I think it's a good report. Yeah, so it's a good report on what it says, but I think it says part of the question. I've heard of quotes as short as 48 hours, supply chain issues, delays in getting material, and that you can't get any fixed dates. You're working in the dark, a lot of stuff. I know cables and stuff, you're in the dark. They say it might be 3 weeks, and I know people that have waited for months of stuff that's supposed to be here. Yeah. So while this is very, very good, the situation out there is a lot more unsettled than what this says.
Yeah, totally. Terry.
Yes, I just can't agree more with what Foxy and Murray have said this, and I think these prices, especially around steel, are underestimated. I've heard far big figures than what's being quoted here, but there is a story to tell, and we have to really drill down on our projects to make sure we're not pricing something that's going to be unsustainable going forward.
Here, sorry, Rex.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I really pick up on the points that have been made by the councillors. I had a really good session with Bruce and Andrew with respect to this particular report, and I'm hoping that they will come in and actually reinforce some of the points that have been made by the councillors. Before they do, I just wanted to, I suppose, put out there that the story is also not just of immediacy. So Andrew has identified in the report that this is going to have flow-on effects into 22, 23, and even 23, 24. And what Bruce and Andrew and I have agreed to is that we're actually going to do quite a bit of work in the first quarter of the 22-23 financial year to bring a paper up after that, into that third quarter of the calendar year, or into September, October, which will start to deal with some of the impacts on the corporate performance area of our business and what the implications are of the flow on or the cascading into 23, 24, and even and beyond. So it's going to be a constant conversation, and will also be a significant conversation as we develop the LTP 24 and beyond. So I just wanted to reinforce what you said, but say it's not going away. It's actually something we've got to be ahead of the game of, and we're starting to talk now 18 months to 24 months to 36 months impact that we will be coming back to you with.
I would have thought we would have had a number of capital works projects canned or completely rehashed as a result of these cost increases. Who was next?
Oh, I'll go. Would it? I was thinking, would it be useful? Obviously, we've got that attachment A starting from page 332.
Yeah.
Just wonder if it would be, if it's possible to actually have like a smaller table that just has the ones that have got figures on them. Obviously, the variances that are all zeros are just sort of, taking up a lot of space there, and it might enable us to sort of concentrate a bit more on the ones where there is some significant numbers in the variance columns. And yeah, I mean, I guess it almost sort of feels to me like, and I hate to use this strategy, but this particular analogy, like it seems like a wartime sort of footing, because we've got stuff that needs to be done. We've got stuff that we don't know whether we can do. Costs, we've got so little control over those. Supply chain, yeah, it just sort of seems to me very serious, and yeah, we do need to get that out to people to say, hey, look, we know this particular, we've said we're going to do this, we're looking at only being able to do 60% of what we've said. Here's the reasons why. Yeah, just to really front foot that, because we'll get slammed anyway, but yeah, I just think some front footing is definitely advisable.
And that's what Tony was referring to, needing to really get it out there on all our media platforms. And Tony, I love your tie. Just caught the light before.
Cool. Thanks, Sarah.
I just thought I'd say that. Not wishing to derogate from the seriousness of this issue, and I think this is an excellent report, because this really does put it into context. Anybody seeing this would be just gasping. And yeah, I don't know if there's if Andrew's on board, but is there anything else anybody else wanted to add? Murray?
I was just going to say to the Thames councillors, we wanted 30 cube of concrete last week and couldn't get it for 2 weeks. So you change your whole program of works, because out of Firth and Thames, you cannot get concrete for 2 weeks. So you imagine doing some of the council work, and 1/2 dozen loads of concrete. That's where you are, and your whole project goes out. It's managing these things. I feel sorry for the staff, and I'm not saying this lightly. I feel really sorry for them, because a lot of the time, and I hear what Martin's saying, looking at costs, a lot of the time is saying, hell, I can get that material, I can go and do that now. And you might just have to go and do that, because the whole thing is moving so fast. It's a case of doing things when you can get it.
There's another aspect to this we haven't considered either, and that's the impact on people trying to fulfil their resource consent obligations. Now, if they're having supply issues, they're also going to have issues with meeting deadlines, requirements, etc. We're going to have to identify some leniency and some discretion around how we manage that as well. And I've got every confidence in Brian and his team. I think they'll do a great job, but I think we need to be conscious, very conscious of how this, while it affects council, affects every person going for resource consent, undertaking any sort of works involving any of this stuff. And so we need to be mindful of that so that we're not unduly penalising anybody. Somebody else has got their hand up.
Andrew Bowden.
Sorry, Andrew.
Just to come back to Tony and Murray's point about this table. This table shows increases from last year. The first quarter of this year, there have been subsequent increases which reflect what you know has happened recently, particularly Murray. The bigger issue, in my opinion, are the missing people. The missing people. Yesterday, I was chasing up an electrician, quite a respected electrician in the district, and his two top people have got COVID. So I can't follow up that. And people like the guys who do the, I forgot the name now, who do the roading, their sealing crews suddenly go down for a week or two, so work can't happen. So there's a lot of missing resource that is associated with this. So there's the inflation, the fuel prices, COVID, the external international effects of, people like China upping their demand for their own product that puts us at a significant disadvantage with regard to this. So as Rex has said, quite rightly, we discussed to start off with, looking at next year, that won't be good enough. We need to look at the year after and see how we will address and how long, which who knows at the moment, the projected COVID influence on what we do, both operationally and from the capex perspective, need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
This is the most depressing report I've written in 12 years.
But I have to say it's Andrew, it's probably one of the best though, because it is so informed, and then you've just identified how we now have to add to that with all these other issues that you've just raised. So it's a compounded situation and compounding situation. So this is not going to end anytime soon. Martin.
Yeah, I'm just sort of, I think it's great with the tables with their numbers and things. I guess I'm just sort of always a little bit conscious about, with tables, just sort of trying to bed the context of what you're trying to communicate. To me, I don't want to be putting additional work on council staff, but having some sort of context to some of those numbers, just to say, oh, this is 78,000 less than this. This is going to mean blah blah blah. It means we can, we can put 2 netball courts in, but not the 3rd and 4th. I guess just sort of some context around those numbers, because people will look at that and go, oh well, this budget's this number of thousand less. What's that actually going to mean as far as what we might be able to do? So yeah, I guess.
Well, I think Martin, taking up on Tony's point about pushing this into the media, I think we can summarise the effects of that table in that communication with our comms team so we can advise the community and the wider community outside the district itself on what the implications of all this are. So I take on board your comment, and I take on board that from Tony, and between me and Bruce and Lorna's team, we will action that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
On that basis, then I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. I just wonder, so that's quite clear that we're going to have a media coverage and dissemination of this information, so that in line with what Tony said.
Yep.
We don't have to have a resolution around that, Rex?
No.
No. Okay, sweet. And that's the case. I think now it's probably time to have an adjournment. Do you want it for 10 or 15?
5.
10 sounds
Okay,
good.
10 minutes. See you
I need
back
10.
here at 11:15. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew and Rex.
Thank you.